Hi everyone, it's Tammy with Shabby Fabrics. I'm here to show you how to do magic binding on a quilt. We have this quilt that just came back into our shop and it needed to have binding put on it, so I thought I'd take this opportunity to show you on a real quilt rather than one that I've just put together. So when we put our binding on a quilt, when you come to a corner, we're going to do what we call a 1/4 inch stop. And a 1/4 inch stop means that you're stopping a 1/4 of an inch before you get to the end of the quilt. So I would stop my stitching here. Then I'm going to fold my binding at a 45-degree angle like this, keeping this edge and this edge parallel. Here's my nice 45 right here. I'm going to fold it back just like this. So my folded edge is now even with this edge, and these edges are even, and these folded edges are even. So let's go to the sewing machine and let's actually do that, all right? So back at the sewing machine now, I'm going to go ahead and stitch to the end of this corner. I am using a 1/4 inch seam allowance to put this binding on. I'm using my 97D foot on my Bernina. I'm using the feed guide here. I'm using the Bernina 97 foot, and it has the dual feed guide. So this acts like a walking foot when it comes down behind this foot. And I'm going to stitch to the corner, except I'm going to stop a 1/4 inch before I get there. This is called a 1/4 inch stop. There's my 1/4 inch. Now I'm going to back up a couple of stitches and cut my thread. Okay, so now we take it off the machine. I'm going to take my binding and fold it this direction, 45-degree angle here, so these edges are even. Whoop, come back here, quilt. Okay, and then I'm going to fold it back on itself like this, keeping my folded edges even here. My little folded edges are equal, and this is parallel to my bottom of my raw edge. And now we're going to turn this quilt around if he'll cooperate. There we go. All right, and we are going to start a 1/4 inch in. Here we go. I'm going to come on. I'm going to take a little back tack here because I don't want this seam to come out. All right. I'm going to stitch a little ways here. Again at a 1/4 inch. And I'm just keeping my raw edges even. Okay. Take a back stitch. And I'm going to stop because I am almost to where I started. So now I'm going to take this back to the ironing and we will attach the binding together. All right, so here we are back at the ironing station, and I have left long tails so that I have plenty of room to join these together. I don't want to cut myself short. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fold my binding back on itself like this on both sides. Okay? I want to leave a 1/4 inch gap between these two. So I'm just going to kind of even them out. Okay? So I have a 1/4 inch gap right here between. Now I don't know why it's a 1/4 of an inch. It just is, and it just works. This is the magic. Okay? Here we go. So now I'm going to take my iron and I'm going to give this a really good press because I want those creases to be really set in there because we're going to use them as our guides. So we really want to give this a good press. Okay, that looks good. All right, so now I'm going to open my binding on my starting side. I'm going to move it out. And I'm just going to lay it open just like this. And I can see my creases in it that I just pressed. Now I'm going to take the binding on my finishing side And I'm going to lay it on top of it. And I'm going to open this one up so I have the wrong side facing me, so I have right sides together. And I'm going to fold my quilt a little so these will go together nicely. All right, so now what I'm doing is I'm matching all of my creases. So I'm matching the crease I just put in the binding with this crease. This crease matches here. I'm going to hang on to this and I'm going to peek underneath, and I'm a little bit off. I'm going to adjust this slightly. There we go. I am right on the money. Everything is lined up. All 4 creases are lined up with the 4 creases on the piece underneath. Now what do we do? Well, now I have to draw a line. So I'm going to take my little ruler here and I'm going to put it on my fabric parallel to my quilt. You always want to go parallel to your quilt. That way you're always going to cut off the correct side of your fabric. Your seam will be going the correct direction. I'm going to take a friction pen and I'm going to draw a line. This is my sewing line. Okay? All right. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use a couple of pins here, and I'm going to pin this binding in place. You guys know me, I don't like pins, but in this case, I do. I don't want this binding to move. I want all my creases to stay exactly where I have them. Okay, so now I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and we're going to sew corner to corner, and then I'll be back and we will finish this out. Okay, so here we are back, and I'm going to just stitch this really quick right on that line. I don't need to back tack here. This is a seam that's going to be sewn again, so I don't have to back tack this. Okay, perfect. All right, now we're going to go cut this, and I'm going to show you the magic. All right, so here we are back, and I have sewn this. Now I'm going to cut a 1/4 inch away from my binding line, from my stitching line, just like this. There we go. I'm going to trim my corners like this. All right, and I'm going to press the seam open because I like to do them open. It makes my binding lay flatter when I do that. There we go. Okay, now the magic. Watch. Ta-da! Everything lays perfect. This binding is perfectly joined. It matches exactly perfectly. And I didn't measure anything. How crazy is that, right? Okay, so now I'm going to stitch this down at the machine, and then I'm going to show you how we press it. Actually, I can press it over here. Let's press this side. Okay, so a lot of times I like to do my binding, I like to machine stitch it to the back rather than just hand stitch it. So to do that, I'm going to take my binding and I'm going to give it a really good press. It just makes this edge nice and crisp. It makes that fold nice. I'm going to come right into that corner. And then when I turn it to the back, look at that nice miter. They're just beautiful. I like to use Wonder Clips to clip my bindings. I'm going to be sewing from the top. I'm going to show you how I machine stitch my binding to the back. I'm going to use my Wonder Clips. Let's clip this edge like this. All right, and now I'm going to miter this corner. I'm just going to fold it and fold this back down on top of it. We will make it work. There we go. Perfect miter on the back. Okay. We'll hang on to that. All right, so now I'm going to take this to the machine and I'm going to show you how we top stitch this binding. All right, so here we are back. Now I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to stitch exactly in the ditch right here. This is not something I do quickly. I do this slowly. All right, so let's begin. And I'm just going to stitch very slowly. And that crease stays so nice because I press that. I'm using thread to match my binding. Just like that. Take our clip out. Watch your corner when you come to it. Again, your walking foot or your dual feed foot is very helpful on these machines. I'm going to take that clip out, spin it around, kind of adjust a little here so you guys can see what I'm doing. There we go. And down we go. Just like that. So let's take a look and see what that looks like now on the back of the quilt. It's perfect. Okay, so we have a stitch right here. Perfect. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed this binding tutorial. Here's to making many more quilts and finishing them quickly.